There was one either in the past or one coming up in the future that pointed out that if you believe there is a destination, it's in this kind of effort, at which point no additional effort on your part is required. If you believe there is a destination, then there is one. And I was going to give you a slightly different twist on the operational intention of human institutions. Is although they cannot, by their own definition, fulfill their own defined aim without being self-destructive, there's also a point at which, and it's very shortly after you initiate your participation in the institution, but there is a point very soon at which no further effort is required. The beauty of this situation, if I must point it out, is like you go join the XYZ organization, church, school, political party, social organization, and it has ABC as its aim, and you say, well, that's sort of what I had in mind. Plus they say that they have a dance once a month, and you go, always help. So you join up, but let's say that the ABC aim is a bit more metaphysical in its entirety than a drunken dance once a month. Some form of intellectual, spiritual enlightenment, some way in which you're going to better yourself as a human. And inasmuch as such aims will not be fulfilled, then there has to be what amounts to an alternative aim. It's not spoken as a name. It's not described as a name. What it's described as, tacitly, indirectly, is that after a certain point, you don't have to make any further effort. And that becomes the aim. Based upon that kind of chuckling, I assume that some of you already have got it on your own, but it's such as you join an organization that says, our purpose is to become as intelligent as the whole universe. And you go, that's it. So you join up. Well, I'm exaggerating, of course, but if I go back and make it simple, and we keep using the same examples over and over, a religion, and it says that its purpose is to make you, how about, perfectly satisfied and happy with life by in some way living in total unison with the great cosmic forces. And so you say, that's it. That's what I'm after. And you join up, and after 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 meetings, you say, well, when are you going to teach them how to do it? And assuming that they're trying to level with you, somebody's finally going to say, well, look, that kind of thing is sort of the goal. It's not, none of us. I'm the head guy, says, the priest or rabbi or whoever. He says, I'm as far up in the hierarchy as you can get, and I can't do it. Our founder couldn't even do it. And if you were an ordinary sane person with a certain kind of held over insight from your jungle days is now transferred up to your neural system, you might be inclined to go, whoa! Philosophers used to say that when, whoa! Some of them did. You go, well, what have I stepped into? But you understand there is an unspecified goal after that is, well, you've joined up. All right, I'll drag it out a little bit. You go back several times. You ask for private meetings with the head man. And you describe what the dreams you had in mind, that in some way when you were a child you dreamed that there was some never, far away happy land that you could scratch where you itch internally, that you could be satisfied, that you could see into the heart of reality, and etc. And let's say that if we're using a religion, it could have been something else, but if it's religion and the guy goes, yeah, I know exactly, that's how I end up being a priest, or that's how I went into this. And you say, well, I thought you would help. And he said, well, we want to. That's the whole purpose of this. But none of us can fulfill that in our lifetime, which of course is one of the reasons that churches have more members than philosophy clubs. Because philosophy clubs are sort of a point blank in your face intellectual city thing about, well, we got all the questions, but nobody's got the answers. So you got to be satisfied with that. Whereas religion is more for the common, sane person, the more down-to-earth person. Is when you push religions, that institution, and say, well, I thought you had the answer to my question. They go, well, no, we're asking the same questions, but none of us are going to have the answers until after we die. And that's the lucky thing about being here. You go, oh, okay. That's like the long-range alternative goal. That, well, after you die. But between here and there, see, what satisfies you is after you talk, let's say you go back and you counsel, you chat up this priest and you say, well, I joined this religion. I thought you guys were into the same thing. Yeah. Well, I don't seem to be getting anywhere. You don't seem to have any more answers than me. And so finally, they're going to say something like this. They're going to say, all right, have you been doing all the rituals? What they are? Lighting candles, putting out candles, buying candles, selling candles, praying 3 times a day, not praying 3 times a day. Have you been doing all this? Did you join? Did you pay your fees? Have you kept, yes. And then he'll look you dead in the eye and say, now this has been, after it's been established that you and they have similar goals, similar interests. Yes, we do, there's no doubt. But when you push it about, well, you don't seem to be fulfilled. You don't seem to be feeding me what I wanted. It finally gets to, well, look, are you attending with everyone else? Are you, we ask that you attend 3 times a week. 2 times, yes. And you've been paying your 20%, yes. And you've been lighting the candles, you've been, yes. They go, well, that's all I do. And I'm the head man. The point is, it reaches a place that the goal that is attainable is this. They don't look at it this way, but the goal that is attainable is give up the goal. This is the best we can do. In other words, give up, that's the goal. You want to be enlightened, right? Well, you can't be, and so you joined a place that says that we're in charge of it, right? That's what I'm saying. All right, none of us can do it. And so instead of that, what we do is go through these rituals, and we pay a certain money, and we throw roses at a picture of somebody or whatever they do, and you go, oh. And he looks at you like, do you understand now? We all start out interested, but grow up. I was curious as you, but then I had to join. I had to get a job. I'm now working for the religion, and now you're here interested. Give up. Maybe it'll work out. Maybe we'll know it after death. Maybe, who knows what'll happen. But all you can do is do what's already been prescribed. Our great founder. Yeah. Jesus, is it? In other words, you accept because it does seem better. Although I'm saying give up, that is certainly not what people, that is not the description that anyone uses to themselves. But you understand, it reaches a point that you have seemed to have adopted new behavior, and the behavior is not something that you made up. That's always of prime importance with ordinary people. That's why religions are not funny. They're not a fit object for some kind of sarcasm. Because they do not say, give up. They fulfill the point that an ordinary person could not do for themselves. Even though from a more objective, a broader view, their so-called answers, solutions, methods are vacuous, that they don't satisfy you. You wouldn't be sitting here listening to this kind of stuff. But an individual would feel, what would be worse than vacuous? Just left out. At least if you go to an institution, it's like you do go to a dance and they never play the song you wanted to hear, but at least it's a dance. At least it's somewhere to go. There are other people and they say, here's our weekly dance. By dance, I mean mass, some kind of service, or a dance. The point is you go there with other people, but if you did not have an institution to provide what seems to be an interim goal in life, that is, give up, you would be sitting at home going from somewhere from a slight neuroses to a acute psychosis. You understand? You would really be, if you're an ordinary sane person at some point along the line, you'd be sorely tried. You'd find yourself going kind of nutso. So you understand? So the point is, if you sit there and tried to be a philosopher by yourself, to make it and put it in simple terms, you went and checked out churches, you checked out academic life, and you decide, well, they don't know either. Or they admitted they didn't. They said, yeah, but come join up and do the rituals with us and come here and get a degree or light the candles, come to services. And you go, well, maybe later. But, if you don't know, and the priest or the professor admits, no, we don't. I know what you're asking. I used to feel the same way 20 years ago, but I'm going to tell you, nobody really knows what they're doing about this. We're doing the best we can. And you go, all right, well, maybe I'll come back, but I'm going to try it on my own. If you went and tried it on your own and you were still an ordinary person, you stayed sane, you would end up going back to that religion or to some religion. In other words, sitting at home, you would never come up with anything. In other words, even if they're all faux goals, they're all vacuous solutions, an ordinary person can't come up with that. You understand? It's why religion or anything out in life is not a fit subject for a sarcasm, because an ordinary person can't do any better. That's why these things operate. That's why they work. You can say, well, there they are singing a bus that's not going anywhere. Yeah, but at least they're singing on a bus with other people. It's better than being, if you're talking about ordinary people, it's better than them sitting at home going nuts by themselves, being a hermit, letting their hair go down to their knees and never shave, never bathe, just go nuts and get irritable, more so than normal. It does, though they still did not analyze it, describe it in those words, is what I was redoing this one, is if you once decide, if you once accept, if you once conclude on your own, but it's better if it comes somewhere else, but if you accept it, that there is a destination, and you say, the destination is to do the Zen rituals, to go ahead and be a good Catholic. I mean, that's all we can do in life, or try to be a good Muslim, whatever it is. That's all we can do. The head man here admitted that it probably would not fulfill what I'm describing, because he said he had similar hungers when he was a kid and it didn't happen. But I don't know what else to do. I go home and I sit by myself and I try to meditate. I try to come up with an idea, and I don't have anything any better than they do. So at least I go out there and I'm with them, and maybe there is something more to it than I imagine, because there are hundreds of thousands or millions of people doing it, and they can't all be deluded. And me, the best I could come up with was sitting at home and getting drunk by myself. I tried that 10 years and it didn't get me anywhere. I had to finally realize. So once you accept that there is a destination, then there is. But the thing is, out in life, the destination is whatever you accept it to be. Which is what I'm trying to insinuate is actually not the destination that you had in mind originally. But if you're ordinary, what else are you going to do? I know that there are 2 or 3 more coming up sometime in our lifetime, if we live another few weeks, similar to that. And it's also, since I was talking about a certain matter a few minutes ago, anything that's publicly discussed amongst ordinary civilized men is always on the basis of euphemisms. Code. All right. I thought maybe that'd get your attention. That's too fancy. Back to the original. Euphemism. See, code makes it sound like that the people are actually knowing what they're doing. Of course, some of them believe they are. Especially in religions. They think, yes, this is a code. If you're speaking about that, which is a stalling tactic, or for those of you that are getting real good, when you're speaking about ordinary life, public life, out in the public forum, it is, compared to the private life, the hormonal life, comparably speaking, it is an illusion. You could live without it. And therefore, anything you say, no matter how serious it is euphemistic. If we say, romance, or we say make love instead of screw, and of course we say screw instead of other things that they don't want me to say on tape. And so, but an ordinary mind can go, yeah, I understand that. It's just civilized and it sounds more decent. Yeah. But think about actually what it is. Not knocking romance, but romance is neurally to sex as screwing would be. See, I'm using words now. The term make love is neurally what screw, or the F word, is hormonally. So it's not just a matter of being more civilized. The point is, every time you start talking about life, if you can talk, you're already one stage removed from being a naked wild beast. You're now a grizzly bear or something in a tuxedo, in a morning coat. And there you are, and anything you talk about the past has to be euphemistic, because the whole language is invented. Because the whole life, once you put on your grizzly bear morning coat, in that sense, now your whole life is invented. That's why the neural world, that's why the civilized world is malleable. That's why it can change. And the hormonal world can't change. That no matter how smart you are, you got to eat. Just because you have a PhD, you can't get by without eating. You can have a PhD in nutrition. Figure that out. Or if you're sane and ordinary, you can have a PhD in sexology and you still got a screw. Either that or you're going to die, blow up, and become one big zit or something. You can have an MD degree, and you could have done your major work in sleepology, if there's such a thing. Sleep disorders. You could be the world's leading expert, right? but you still got to what? Sleep. So there's nothing to talk about, and the hormonal world does not change. You can be poor, you can be rich, you can be dumb, be educated. It is only the intellectual world that can apparently change. That's all it changes. We don't change hormonally. I mean, what degree man has changed over recorded history, 5,000 or 6,000 years, what he's changed physically is not, you could write home to your grandmother about on half a postcard. Maybe just the corner of a postcard, just enough to get a stamp on, and 2 or 3 words, and you could bring your grandmother or your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother who was around sometime pre-Mesopotamian, and she wanted to know, well, how much have people changed? You could just tear off just maybe a 4th or an 8th of a postcard, and you could tell her how much we've changed physically. Now, we're not talking about clothes. Sure, clothes have changed. No. She says, how much have people changed hormonally? Wouldn't take 2 or 3 words. So if that was the basis of change, if that was the only outlet, life would not be very interesting to life itself, even at the normal level. It's only here. And the only reason here that it can change, and is sort of open-ended, is, comparably speaking, this is invented. And we make it up as we go along. Being charitable to ordinary people, saying we make it up as we go along. If you want a better way, we broadcast it. We're the little speakers, and life broadcasts it through us as it goes along. In other words, if you decide that you've reached a destination, it is a destination, but remember this, it's a euphemistic destination. But nobody can call your hand. That's why people are so emphatic when they seem to have undergone change in life enough that creates a distinct impression of a destination. Reformed drunk. That, don't tell me, says a reformed drunk, dope addict, whatever. Don't tell me there's no such thing as change and having a destination in life, because here are photographs. They have movies of me. I've got my police record, the number of times I was arrested, beat up, my medical records. I was dying. And one day I came to my senses and I quit. I quit drinking. I am not the same person. Anybody around you will tell me. And they all go, yeah, we'll tell you. I'll be glad to tell you about it if you'd like for me to. Oh, I'd be delighted. Because it seems to be a great change. And if they say it's a great change, it is a great change. How can you tell them it's not? But you understand, it'd be a difference if we were talking hormonally. If the man says, I used to have 2 heads and I only have 1. Or used to I could go, or I can go now. Used to I ate 3 times a day, and now I eat once every 3 months. Now he can't tell you that, not the same person, because you can disprove that. He doesn't have to speak euphemistically. That's not euphemism, that's insanity. It's not true. But if he says, I used to be a drunk, and now I no longer drink, I no longer want to drink, or you can say, used to I was nuts. It doesn't have to be just booze. Used to I had horrible daydreams of wanting to kill everyone. I never did do it. I never did hurt anybody, but I used to walk the streets for 30 years, just imagining blood-chilling, horrendous scenes of violence I would perpetrate on my fellow man. And now I'm over it. That's his destination. You can't tell him it's not true. He made it up. Speaking euphemistically. So anytime a man says he's changed, anytime a man says, I went from here to there, what else is he going to say? And do you see that's all euphemisms? But as long as you're speaking in euphemisms, you cannot disprove it. See, which again is the built-in beauty of human speech and civilization, is no one can disprove anyone else's reality. Within the general confines, the general perimeters of any local reality, one man can say, I used to hate people and now I don't. And you can say, I don't believe you. I look at you and I don't like the way you're forward kind of, I bet you still hate people. No, I don't. Well, I don't even hate you for not believing me. I bet you do. Yeah, you can do that forever. They can dance verbally, but you cannot disprove someone else's verbal reality. You can disprove their physical reality. Again, if they say, I have 3 heads, or I have a sex organ 3.5 feet long, if he was a man, you can say, well, that's easily proven. So you can disprove that if the man's sane. If you and he are sane, he says, I have 2 noses. You say, well, where is it? And he says, well, I have it under my arm. Make him raise his arm, and you say, well, no, you don't. You know, you got him. But if a man says, I talk to people from Mars, I just wanted you to say, I know I'm pushing it now because this is not the ordinary perimeters of sanity, but if a man says, I talk to God, let's do that, because people, I don't know who you ever thought about that, but still today, people, you're considered insane if you say you talk to people from another planet. But if you say you talk to God, people go, oh, all right. But anyway, if a man says he talks to God, you can't disprove that. You can't say, well, unzip your pants and show me. You can't disprove his reality. You understand? So euphemistically, a man can say, I am now the world's best, maybe not perfect, not my behavior, but internally I'm the world's best Jew or Buddhist, because I talk to the spirit of Buddha each and every day. You can't disprove it. You can walk away and say, no, you don't. I don't believe it. But that's the thing about civilized intellectual reality, is it cannot be disproven. Back to, in case you lost your place, you also understand how it's tied in with it. Everything that's said is a euphemism. And as long as it's a euphemism, you can't disprove it. If too many people beat on the euphemism of whatever they're talking about, then the euphemism will suddenly, not suddenly, but it's like a dumpling, it will finally kind of metamorphosize into something else. It will become a reformed version of what it was. It will become a new version of what it was. And everybody beat on that, and years later it becomes something else. I mean, it's nothing you do with a euphemism. I mean, you can throw it down, you can kick it, you can stomp it, you can throw it around against the wall, you can turn it inside out. You can do anything you want to with a euphemism. When you're gone, if it doesn't have anything better to do, a euphemism will stand right there by your grave and go, I see that you may be passing away. So that's the kind of thing a euphemism would do. In your final moment, you might be temporarily lucid and go, I'm fucking dying is what I'm doing. You know? All of civilization within the general sane parameters, it's easiest to talk about the words, but anything that cannot be hurt cannot be helped. And if you understand that you cannot hurt somebody else's reality, somebody else's that says, well, we'd all be better. We should all be Christians. I don't care what you were born as. I don't care what you say. It's just a fact. We should all be Christians. And let us say that you got to keep this within the kind of confines of some sort of debatable sanity from ordinary people's view. And you say that's not true. And you come out with all sorts of reasonable arguments about how many people are of a different religious persuasion and why that cannot be proven. Are you even try to attack that, well, all religions have a certain similar central core and we should not even be in different sects divided up like this. If the man believes what he said, just an ordinary guy, and you can't hurt him, you could end up saying, well, I'm going to tell you the truth. I tried to be decent with you, but I'm going to tell you what, as far as I'm concerned, Christianity is all religion, just insanity, and especially yours, and walk away. But now, if he has already accepted the euphemism of whatever that religion is, or religion as an institutional euphemism, he's accepted that as one of his destinations in life, one of his ad hoc alternative excuses for not having a destination, then you can't hurt him, but by the same token, you can't help him. Now may I refer you back to the absolute mootness of all forms of criticism. Helpful criticism. I'm not talking about just sarcastic criticism. I mean trying to help other people. That you meet a man that seems rather sane and intelligent until you find out that he's a Southern Baptist or an Episcopalian or a Republican, and you go, look, let me talk to you. We'll go off in the corner. I don't have anything to prove. I don't want anybody to hear this. I am not trying to jerk you around in public. But God, I have thought so highly of you until I found out I had no idea that you were a Republican. Let me just listen to me. Let me follow my line of reasoning. You can't help anybody. So that's one of the reasons when I continue to try and give some broader meaning to criticism. I don't mean just an attack. It's any response to euphemistic reality. You can't hurt it. And if you can't hurt something, you sure as hell can't help it. Of course, there's one after that. That it is maybe reality doesn't. Starts with an N. 4-letter word, starts with an N. Go ahead.
It's tricky, indeed a real challenge, trying to tell a potential thinker which way to go.
Well, if somebody was not ordinary, if somebody was not tied to, limited to, ordinary, partisan, euphemistic thought, how could you help them? How could you tell them what to do? Now, anyone else, you can tell them. They can reject it. They can criticize it. But amongst ordinary people, do you ever see, has anyone ever heard of any shortage? Now, you hear a shortage, the freeze damage to the citrus crop in Florida and California. You hear that there's trouble with the cod fishing off Iceland. Do you ever hear of any shortage of advice? Have you ever awoken in the middle of the night, sweating, upset, frightened, that you suddenly think, I need advice about something, and I have nowhere to go? Hey, you could call information. You could get an operator on the line. Dial a number at random. And whoever answers the phone, say, I'm sorry to bother you. You don't know me and I don't know you. I need some advice. Would you help me? I never tried it, but what are we going to guess? How many people, well, let's assume it's not 4 in the morning local time. How many people are just immediately going to hang up if you say, I need advice? I know you don't know me, but please, I need advice. I dare say, well, you know what I'm... So ordinary advice, we have people with euphemistic problems, asking euphemistic questions about their desire for imaginary advice, and other people listening and offering in return. Nothing to gain. They simply want to help. We'll offer you euphemistic advice. You can take it, not take it. Or sometimes if you not take it, they might get mad, and then you get mad back, and both of you can forget what the whole thing was about, and distract you for a day or so. But if someone was not tied to that, the question was, how in the hell would you tell them what to do? Which you could look at another way as one reason, or another beautiful aspect of how life is arranged, that you started out asking people that you went to see your father, you went to see a priest, or a rabbi, or an instructor, or a school principal, a professor, saying, I keep dreaming of this place where it'd be a lot of fun. This place, and I keep trying to get there, and nobody seems to know what it is. And I go, yeah, I know. What can I do? Now, at that point, let us say, before you have really began to die intellectually, that there was a chance you hadn't completely forgotten it, and there's a chance that somebody could point you somewhere. But we're talking about a split second. We're talking about something sharper than even a serpent's tooth or a woman scorned or whatever the damn cliche is. A fresh razor blade. The tongue of a movie reviewer. That split second that you could have taken some sort of comment, I started to say advice, direction. No one knew what to tell you. And so what did they do? They immediately told you something. Because if that split second, this professor you went to see, if he could fall back into a relapse of an ephemeral moment of lucidity, that he remembered exactly what you're talking about, he knows that he doesn't know, he knows that he gave up, he knows he can't tell you, and it only happens a split second at best. So what does he do? All right, I'm going to tell you, son, I'm glad you asked me. Well, he's got to. It's either that or he would suddenly go nuts and take you with him. So if somebody was not tied to that, how are you going to tell them, yes, well, won't you try this? Won't you go over here? Well, I'm glad you asked me because I'll tell you exactly what you're asking. I was trying to insinuate it can't be done. Of course, the sharp edge is if somebody can get to that point and stay there over a period of time, then they begin to understand themselves that nobody can tell me, so they don't ask, so this whole situation doesn't arise any longer. They don't ask, but they realize if I did ask and somebody told me, they wouldn't know. Under ordinary conditions. I mean, that's the proof positive once you understand, to go up to somebody and go, could I ask you the meaning of life? And they go, well, certainly. Well, if you know anything, you know, well, you say, well, let me go to the bathroom and I'll be back. And then leave. As long as I say, well, certainly, well, you came to the right place, then you obviously came to the wrong place. If you say, do you know the meaning of life? And the guy said something like, do you know what time it is? Or have you ever tried an egg roll with just nothing on it, just plain? Or, something like that. Now, of course, he had to make the secret signal at the same time so that you knew he just wasn't nuts. He did the secret cosmic conspiratorial enlightenment, signal, whatever it is. Go ahead. Trying to be civilized, trying to stay intellectually alive in some way, and life is concurrently running a kind of operational game that does not want you to stay alive enough to upset anything. And so it is indeed like a high wire act to stay sane, to stay civilized, not go bonkers, not just suddenly jump out in the street. I'm exaggerating, of course, but to pull out a machine gun, an Uzi, and just spray everybody, cackle like Daffy Duck, and try to run up the side of a building, or who knows what. So it is like a high wire act. And it's between a man's private life and the public life. It's between, in a sense, him hormonally and him neurally. But what was pointing out, if you picture a high wire act, a tightrope walker, that it turns out to people, it seems to be, that the act consists of this. Your 60 years consists of about 10% wire and 9% of the floor going, hey, 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 this way. You understand? 90% vertigo. 10% nice wire, not giving you any problem, just doing whatever wire does, but it's just a wire. 10% that, and 9%, think of the difference between a little thin wire and the whole expanse of life below going. That's some act.
Hold up.
I was going to say, to give everybody credit, is that not show you why people are so amazed at times they look around other humans and they hear about something in their life and they go, just momentarily of course, but they go, Jesus, how'd they put up with that? Which then they have heroes in fiction to help distract from that, of course. To tie into specific what we're talking about is that all dreams at the ordinary level do feel as though they're cut down in a split second before they are actually cut. Feel as though they're cut down in their prime, which is what it is that you finally arrived at, saying you generically, at that time that finally a priest, a rabbi, some old wise man, an advisor, somebody you trusted, that it finally struck you, nobody knows. And you accept the interim alternative goal, that is of picking up the rituals, going along with the program. But at a split second, the dreams know I was cut down in my prime. Whether you gave up at the age of 20 or 30, it knows I was cut down. Back to anything public, anything that's in the public form that's described individually, institutionally, is a euphemism. It's a description of the imaginary compared to a man's hormonal life. So anything that you identify as being your enemy, anything that you criticize, you couldn't see it if it amounted to anything. It would not be in the public forum. Read it one more. If you will publicly, if you will verbally, even to yourself, identify a foe, it has made you simple for that moment. You might as well, to use religious analogies, you might as well be the poster boy for fundamentalism of whatever religion. Simplicity. You're just barely to the speaking level. But that is quite common, to say the least. But any foe that is publicly identified is only done so by those who have no idea what a foe would be if there was such a thing. But they certainly don't know. But again, notice the beauty and the use of the euphemism. By identifying it, it stops you from any possibility, assuming there were a real one. But it stops you from going any further. As long as you accept the institutional one that religion says it's Lucifer in the Western world. Or it's just bad personal habits, the Buddhists might say. Bad hygiene, bad haircut. Now, evil forces. If you will accept that publicly, it saves you from any possible further untoward surprises. I mean, what if there was a foe? Let's just say, for instance, as long as you first, if life will present the, if we'll dip into the Brothers Grimm, if life will suddenly, Jim Henson on one hand suddenly runs up the Wicked Witch, and you're Hansel or Gretel, or Ken or Barbie, and you take that as being it, what if there's something worse? What if, further down the road is actually Godzilla? Or Pee Wee Herman, well, that is out, something worse. As long as you will take some public, the worst thing in the world, the Christian religion says, is Lucifer, Satan. And you accept that. But what if he is like, a runner? You know what a runner? What's he for? He's a gopher. You remember the Cajun tale I tried to tell you about Big John? That the guy was sleeping in that house and all these things, they come in that were worse and worse. And finally, one of them came in, it was so horrible that I couldn't hardly make up anything horrible enough to describe it. And the guy in the house trying to stay overnight went, "If you ain't Big John, I'm out of here." That. What if there's always a Big John? But if there is, remember, if you will publicly accept or identify what has been identified publicly as this is the foe, if you accept that, you're all right. Or, think, boy, I wish I had a drink, or I wish I still took dope. It's when the connection between being civilized, it's when your high wire act is beginning to cut your feet. It's when you're having trouble that seems like the cars between the hormonal locomotive and all the cars are now neural. That, you either can't get them together correctly, they're too tight, or they're coming apart. All of you done that same thing. He just had his own way of announcing to himself. Not the Chesapeake or not the Santa Fe. He had his own name for it. That trouble down the line, trouble on the short hairs line.
Okay.
To it as anybody in religion, the examples I used, if I said that learning how, being able to think for oneself is the purpose in life. All this other stuff about trying to be a good Christian, trying to intellectually awaken, trying to spiritually evolve, are euphemisms. What you're trying to do is to think for yourself. Is that any different than you have got to be a true Muslim, Buddhist? And I can insist, well, no, it's not, because it is nonpartisan. It doesn't say exactly what you should think. I don't tell you what to think. It just says you should think for yourself, and therefore that is the ultimate, superior, supreme example and description of some sort of individual effort. That nothing else is comparable, because I was so clever, it is absolutely its own definition. It's open-ended, to think for yourself. So no matter what you ask me, like, well, does that mean so-and-so? Well, I don't know. You figure it out. You can think, well, boy, that is good, except for this. There's a difference between doing that and thinking about the term. Wait a minute, think for yourself. Wait a minute. Think for yourself. Even we, under the best conditions, you cannot escape the humidity of life. That you can come up with what is almost an escape route, verbally. Almost something that's not euphemistic. And life will say, okay. But are you sure you understand what you're talking about? And you go, well, wait a minute. You understand? Life can tell you, don't jump in the deep end of the pool. Do I have to add a punchline to that? But you were born in a bathing suit. Won't you read it one more time before I say anything?
Okay.
It twists several times in there. It's not straightforward.
At the very heart of being civilized is to make your private life public.
There's sort of a twist at the end. Before I get to that, this is in a more specific way what we're talking about euphemisms and etc. To be civilized, you're supposed to take what could be, what many people would accept to be their private life, their psychological life, their personal, their spiritual, their intellectual. Nowadays they'd call it their psychological life. And it appears to be, by all ordinary views, accepted reality is that you are a better person. You're probably just minimally a person, a civilized person, if you will take your private life and in some way bring it out in the public. Conversely, put another way, a person who will not talk about his personal problems nowadays has more than whatever his personal problems are. He has an additional problem. And we all know that. All you got to do, watch Oprah or Phil Donahue or, read up on Freud or somebody. To be civilized, to be sane, just to be neighborly, for your family to think you're tolerable intellectually, is you have got to be able to take your private life. We know that. It's more and more today. I'm not attacking those talk shows. They're indicative of life itself. But nowadays, people walk up to you on the street, somebody with a clipboard, and say, pardon me, we're doing a survey. We want to know how often do you have disturbing sexual daydreams? And nowadays, I'm just guessing what? 99 out of 100 people would answer. Would stop and go, well, and answer the question. Beyond those kind of specific examples, amongst other people, even to yourself, to the mirror. That's why I've written so many things about people talking into the mirror in the morning. But you do not, if you're ordinary, you do not even at the ordinary level feel connected to your family, to your acquaintances, to life itself, if you hold back. I mean, in fact, they tell you, as you all know, it's still considered, the general prognosis is that not letting out deep-rooted personal feelings, not being able to share them or to talk to them, can, in fact, increase their horrificness, their morbidity, their bad effect. There's one thing to have bad daydreams or to have something happen to you in a childhood, but it can be worse if you remember it or you think about it and you never talk about it. That's accepted wisdom. But it's more than just accepted wisdom. It is, in one view, it is a minimal step to be civilized. That you finally put names on feelings. And you go into the public forum and set them free. To set them free is like, well, I said it was a little twist whether it's not worth a great deal of comment, but it's like I tried to end up making it sound like, put words, give names to feelings, and it's like put wings on your inner life and then go into the public and set them free. Like, what a great thing. What a good... That's open to some question. That's according to where you want to live your life. You want to live out in the public forum, you got to do that. So you might as well go, it's so great to be able to take these horrible fears and dreams I had and be able to go out in public now and talk about them. I feel so much better. You may, but if you do your simple, your ordinary, that's why it's kind of a trick, see? A little good-natured humor. That, I feel so much better now that I've spilled my guts. Remember, you can't tell anybody otherwise. You can't go to an ordinary person that feels better by spilling their guts, by putting names, by giving verbal wing to their secret feelings, and then to set them free, to release a caged bird out into the public place, and they say, I feel much better. You'd be an idiot. You'd be more simplistic than they are to go, I know you don't. You're mistaken. You don't feel better. That's some kind of mass hysteria. People go out and talk about their private life out in public and then say they feel better. Boy, are you wrong. I mean, if you want a useless hobby, go out and try to tell people that. Plus, that'd be more than a hobby. Keep it up for a while, and you won't even have to work. Won't have to pay any taxes. Go ahead. Be easy enough for anyone, and since I'm playing the part of anyone, to say that everyone in life has an exaggerated, at least in some way, they have an exaggerated sense of their own importance. But in the public forum, at the ordinary level, you've got to. But conversely is why then the institutions condemn it. Not enough to make you, change your life, but it's where the idea of humility comes from, that God likes a humble person. And then, of course, the joke, except it's not really a joke, it's an operational description of how things work. If somebody says, I thoroughly believe that. As a matter of fact, I hate to brag, but I may be, at least in this part of the world, I may be the world's most humble person. I know you may think that I'm a little out of line, but I'm telling you, I've thought about it and I've observed, and I may be the world's, right now, or at least this part of the world, I may be one of the great humble people. Now, of course, you can laugh and go, well, where's Captain Irony? No. I refer you back to me mentioning the caste system, the social classes, which is not a matter of sociology, it's not a matter of finances, it's not a matter of external, the trappings of power or wealth. Why do we actually have ways to show social class? And you've seen as many descriptions, or you could even think of some, but I'm going to tell you. I already did it, but now I was trying to give you another view of it. It's because everyone knows, which I know is bad to say that to ordinary people, the hormonal level, the grizzly bear level, underneath your tuxedo, everybody knows everybody else is a grizzly bear. You know that you're a grizzly bear. If you're sane, and I don't mean just people sitting here, ordinary people, ordinary sane people, know that they don't amount to much more than, as Davy Crockett used to say to his nephews that walked through the woods, although they weren't around places like Moles and Joe's or the 21 Club, he said, you got to be careful about bar stools. And he'd say, you mean about falling off? And he'd go, no, stepping in them. That isn't what I meant to say. That wasn't the point. Any sane person knows hormonally. They know at the non-euphemistic level that they are no better, that they are no different than anyone else. Everyone knows hormonally. Everyone's hormones knows their value. Last time, high school chemistry, some of you were there since me, what is it, $1.95 is what you're worth? That's what you're worth. The point is, you know, and this has nothing to do with psychology, it has nothing to do with religion, it has nothing to do with the idea of humility. The point is, at the hormonal level, you know that you're not worth any more than anybody else. And you also know that no one else is either, that there are no heroes. Nobody is any better off than you are. Not any better, just nobody's any different. Therefore, that is part of the purpose. To hold together this euphemistic thing we call civilization is to have heroes, fictional or otherwise, real heroes, people you admire, people you try to impress. But it's on the basis that you know that you're not impressive. So, at a quite real, inescapable, physical, hormonal level, everyone knows their own worth. And also, everyone has an exaggerated sense of their own worth. But since they know their own worth, and they know, and I don't want to say that they're not worth anything. Let's say that everybody's worth, what sounds better than anything? 2,040? How's that sound? Okay. Everybody's worth 2,040. Except you also understand that everybody else on this planet is worth 2,040. On that basis, what's going to hold this together? Why would you get up in the morning? Why would you try to get ahead in this illusionary tar pit in which you're trying to swim? Or sit there, get up every morning, clean off your car, wipe off the windshield, take a shower and sit there in that great parking lot in a car that won't run and play like this. Why would you do that? Well, you've got to believe, well, I can go better than these other people. I got, my car is dressed up fancier. I put on a new steering wheel cover. All that on the basis that nobody's going anywhere. Yeah, but I got on better clothes than the people over there. So everyone has an exaggerated sense of their own importance. There is a level past that has nothing to do with humility, has nothing to do with morality. It has to do with you understanding. Now I'm not speaking to ordinary people. For you to have a literal, absolute understanding of what I said was true, and there's nothing else to think about it. But that goes hand in hand. By then you have been freed with the idea of heroes. You've been freed from taking the euphemistic goals of institutions. And it's no longer any form of criticism. None. It's not even the same. It's nothing. It's not that, well, now I see that religion doesn't know anything. Nobody knows anything. Or if that's still too crude, everybody knows 2040. The church knows 2040. The guy that runs the Esso station down the street. It's no longer Esso, but he's so out of date, he still has an Esso sign. He knows as much as the church does. He knows as much as the philosophy department at Harvard does. Once you understand that, then all forms of self-importance, all forms of importance are not important. You're no longer, there is no living validity to ideas of hubris, humility, egoism. As you understand, everybody's sitting there in the parking lot, and I can be with them. My car is there. I was born in it. Everybody's sitting right there. Everybody's at the same level. No better, no worse. But if you saw that, and it's your ordinary level, if we're back to that, and we could have it both ways, it would drive you nuts. At worst, or at best, I'll leave it to you. At worst, you just quit getting up in the morning. You would just mellow out to the point that we couldn't call it mellow out. You'd finally rot out. Don't rot out. Dress up and play like you're important. Then call your mama and bathe and bye.